Hello, it's Angie Polkey here of Purposeful Permaculture, and I've called this episode Next Year's Garden Starts Now. It could also be called Next Year's Food Security Starts Now, because I find this a really exciting time of the year, so I thought I would share that with you. Um, all the busyness of annual vegetable growing is over. We've just got the crops here ready to eat, to harvest and to eat, and some are already indoors, fermented and frozen and pickled, etc. So this is a wonderful time to take stock. And I love it in particular. I've been thinking about why do I like this time of year so much. And I think it's a very good example of permaculture's principle of multifunctionality. And I think that multifunctionality means that you get more than one yield from whatever you're doing. And I find this time of year, not only am I getting the pleasurable enjoyment of putting all my veggie beds to bed, putting the compost on, covering them up, etc., but I also get the anticipation of what I'm going to be growing next year. So that's wonderful. And I'm going to show you how I do that. What I've got is I've got a seed box. It's an old shoe box basically, and all my seeds are in envelopes. This is a very basic system, but it works. I've been doing it for years. So there are my seeds in the envelope labelled March. So and on the front of that, it's an old envelope. I've marked on the front of it all the things that I grow in March or sow in March, and I've also added the years that the seeds are viable for, if they're kept in good condition, because that's really important. One thing to bear in mind is that seed manufacturers, a bit like a lot of other things, put a best by date or a use by date before the seeds may actually be not viable. So it's worth keeping a record of your own viability, your own list of viability, so that you can cross-reference and give it a go. One of the books I use for that is called the Seed Savers Handbook. I'm guessing there are other places, but they've got a really handy table in there with all the common vegetable seeds in there and how long they will stay good in storage. Again, I hasten to add, in good storage, so this box is kept in a cool, dry cupboard all of the time. And then moving through the months, I know exactly what to do. So there's the envelope for April, so I know which seeds are in there, what I'm going to grow in or sow in April, and again how long those seeds are likely to last. So that helps me during the growing season, but this time of year I actually sit in front of the fire often. It's another multifunctional benefit of enjoying our lovely wood burner fire. And I look through and I cross-reference to my lists of how long the seeds keep, and actually obviously add my own observations of how good the germination was this year. So I make notes of germination, and I might give some seeds a second chance. Sometimes things don't germinate because you get it wrong, or the seasonal conditions are just not conducive to seed germination. So, but after a couple of years of no show, out they go. So the next stage of the multifunctionality pleasure is to actually, sources of pleasure, is to actually start thinking, well, which seeds do I now need to acquire? Now, again, another permaculture principle is having many ways to reach important needs or to meet important needs. And seeds, of course, are absolutely vital. If you're growing annual crops, you absolutely need seeds. So I've got several sources of seeds. The first and foremost would be my own home-saved seeds. So here are some seeds I've saved from one of the plants I've got. I also got tomato seeds that I save. I tend to save the fairly easy things, self-fertile things, some of the beans as well, and peas. And Lampeter Seed Library is also a really good source of seeds, home-saved seeds, and not only that, saved by local people to be suitable for local circumstances. So I've got my own seeds that I've saved. I've got seeds that I can get from Lampeter Seed Library, which are locally grown seeds. I've got seeds that are still viable, that might even be in a packet, because I've bought a packet. And then the really lovely thing to do, I enjoy, rather than doing it online. Online's fine if that suits you, but this is one of my favourite catalogues. It's the Organic Gardening Catalogue, and it's like it's like having a magazine to read. Look at all those lovely pictures, just wonderful pictures, telling you how they grow, how prolific they are, how tasty they are, when their harvesting time is. All of that information is in there. So if you're a new gardener, new to gardening, this is a fantastic source of gardening knowledge as well. So that's one of mine, but there are others. Real Seeds, this is a UK-wide from Garden Organic, or supported by Garden Organic, but here in Wales, Real Seeds is really, really helpful, because they again have a team of growers around Wales, and they're selecting seed for the Wales climate, and particularly West Wales. Because they're based near Newport. And then finally, I did mention putting the beds to bed. And if I just get my labels, I'll just get one now, it's over here. So I've got a variety of offcuts of bits of wood and old signage and stuff. And all my beds are labelled. Because I have a 4-year rotation, so I have 4 different types of bed in different families. So this is another way of spreading the risk, really, so that you're trying to reduce the possibility of diseases building up that are particular to a particular crop by rotating the crops. And you also are making the most of the way each particular crop grows in the soil. So some will be deep rooted and bring minerals up to the surface. Others will be more shallow rooted and will need perhaps more compost near the surface and biological activity to help feed them. So I just have very simple, as I said, bits of wood. That one's marked, it says leeks on it. That one says core, which is for courgette. And what I do is I just put these in the beds, so I'm all prepared, and I know which ones, not only which crops are going to go in next year, but more importantly, at this time of year, we start putting compost, homemade compost on the beds, and some crops are heavier feeders than others, so we know exactly what to put on the beds. And then we may, I know not everybody advocates this, such as Charles Dowding, but here in West Wales, where we've got a high rainfall, I tend to cover up the beds for the winter. Just to reduce the amount of water that is hitting the soil and percolating through it. And it also means that the chickens can come up here in free range without damaging the beds, and they can go around and they can eat the slug eggs, etc. So it's a lovely time of year. I'm enjoying a lovely sunny day. I hope you are too. Yeah, so do have a think about growing your own food. There's been some recent surveys that show how incredibly satisfying it is. That I think people who don't grow their own food may think it's a little bit of a chore, but actually once you get in the swing of it, it is just, everybody reports how really, really satisfying it is. So now's the time to start thinking about it, particularly as we know this year seeds just rushed out of the shops and off the warehouse shelves this year because of COVID. So it's worth thinking ahead.